JD, welcome to my channel. What the hell's this stuff? What is this stuff? I don't think this is watch repair, so we're going to have to remove all of this and make sure it's watch repair. So let's just do that and start. Hey there, I'm JD. I'm back. Welcome to my channel. What was that distraction 5 seconds ago? What was it? Just getting back into flight simulation. Spent a career in aerospace and just love aircraft and flight simulators, but this watch that I've almost got running perfectly still has that one problem. When you try to wind it here, it's the gear is not connecting. So, and I got to get the credit cards out because I think you guys need to know what's happening here. So I think the problem is, let me get my pen out here, see if this actually works. And I'm going to draw a really simple diagram here. And let me get the other pen out here, and I think I'll get a book out and show you what this looks like. All right, this is the watch repairer's manual from Fried. And here you have the crown, and then you've got the winding stem here, and then you've got this thing called the winding pinion. And what happens is this winding pinion is in contact in this particular watch. There's an upper winding wheel, right, in this watch. So in this watch, the winding pinion actually contacts the upper winding wheel. Sometimes there's a lower winding wheel as well. In this case, I believe it's just an upper winding wheel. And then when this actually turns, it turns the upper winding wheel, which then turns the ratchet wheel, which is just above the mainspring, which winds the mainspring. So the problem I'm having here is that there's something, there's a device called the winding, what is it called? The crown? Hang on, wait. I got to go forward just a bit to show you here. It's right. Let me get forward just a bit here. There we go. This is a good diagram to explain it, I think, better than the other one. So So again, you've got the crown here, and you've got the winding pinion here, right? And the winding wheel is kind of shown in the back. So this is from below. And what happens when you push that crown inward this way, right? This device here, which is called the clutch, right now it's disengaged, right? So it's the clutch. This clutch will move up towards the crown part of the winding pinion. So I think I've heard that called the crown wheel, maybe, because it looks like a crown on this side. So these little tiny gears mesh with these gears here, and they cause this to turn. And then when this turns, right, the winding pinion turns, it's going to wind this winding wheel. And as you saw in the other diagram, sometimes there's two winding wheels. So what's happening with this particular watch is that the stem is not going down far enough to engage the clutch lever spring, or the clutch lever, because that clutch lever then goes upward in this direction, right, causing the clutch to engage, right? It's disengaged right now, so it's not engaging. So when you push the crown down, this clutch actually goes up and then engages with this this winding pinion here, right? So, or crown wheel, I think is where I've seen it, what I've seen it called before. And so in this watch here, the clutch, the watch crown and stem aren't low enough, right? Now they were low enough when I installed it originally, and then over a period of a couple of weeks, I think, I actually took the watch back out again to fix a mainspring problem. And when I put it back, I might have put it back so that the square of the movement was not aligned the same way it was aligned before with the square of the stem. Let me show you that. Okay, time for a really bad drawing here. So here's that clutch. Goes down like that, up like that, goes like that, and then there's teeth like this, and then it goes down like this, over like this, down like this, over like this, and then like this, and there's teeth on this side. And these teeth here usually connect with the seconds wheel for setting the time, so which is up top here. So there's usually a seconds wheel that connects with another wheel that sets the time. So I'll forget about that. and sort of a, I'll just make a flat view, but, so there we go. So if that's the clutch lever, right, like this, when the stem is pushed in, let me just draw another wheel here. The wheel, so there's a wheel and there's the gears, like that. And then there's another wheel here with a crown that engages with this wheel here. So I think I've heard this called the crown wheel as opposed to the winding wheel, or the other wheel, whatever they called it. So the winding wheel was on the top. So the winding wheel on top, like that, it's got a wheel with the teeth on this side that connects to the teeth that are just on the wheel just above the mainspring, right? Which is the ratchet wheel there. And in the bottom of this, there's another set of teeth on the bottom of it that connects to this wheel right here. So I got to make sure that this clutch moves this way. And so the stem comes out like this of the watch. It actually goes all the way through this, like this. And it's square. I made a little bit fat here, but it's square. And then there's the threads, and then here you've got some kind of a crown. I'll just draw it like this. And if this system isn't low enough, it just doesn't go, when this goes down, this moves this way, which makes this clutch connect to this winding or crown wheel, whatever you want to call it. So this wheel here, right? So my problem is it's just barely connecting, and I can tell because there's still some play in this coming down. And if I push this down more while I'm winding, it actually works. Now there's a sleeve here that I can adjust, and I can screw that in more to make this stem go even further into the watch. So if you look at the watch now, and I look at the movement of the crown here, and I push down, you see there's movement there? Now I don't know whether when I take this movement out, like I'll just take this movement out, and I'll turn the crown, the stem just a little bit, put it back in, and is it going to sit in the same place, right? I don't know, because before it worked perfectly, so it might just be a problem of it not sitting in the right place. So the first thing I'm going to do here is remove the movement, but before I do that, I've got to get my number 58 Myers movement holder, and I'm going to set my hands, see if I can set my hands. I always grab the watch like this and use my fingers like that to push this out, like that. And then I set my hands usually at 12 o'clock. That way when I put my fingers on the movement on the watch, I'm not disturbing the hands because I had the hands perfectly set here. So I do that. There's still movement here that I can feel, right? And if I try to wind it, it's still going to get, yeah, there you go. It slipped just a little bit, right? I don't want it to slip. I want it to be perfect. So I can take this out like that, and then I really just want to be able to take the movement out and put it back in first to see if there's any play there. So I don't want to take the screws out until I get that face off, I think, because I want to make sure that it just drops out perfectly, right? So I could do it all while I'm holding it. That's another way of doing it. That way I don't need to use the movement holder, so I could try doing that. But let me get my, let me lay this down for a second. And I need to get my watchmaking glasses on. And guess, again, for you folks that watch my channel, there's the glasses there, and they've got the ARRI loop on them, which is like fantastic. So I recommend buying that ARRI loop. I don't know how you live without it. If you're living without it now, then go get one. Because if you don't have an ARRI loop, you're a nobody. So I want to make sure my fingers are across the edge here and not interfering with the hands at all. That way when I loosen the screws here, and it's barely wound right now, that's why you're not getting much of an amplitude. When I loosen the screws and pull them out, again, I'll have the screwdriver facing downward in case something slips. And there we go. And that way I'm not going to foul the movement. So I've got that one like this, and let me just turn that around like this. And this screws on the back end, right? So I'll drop that in like that and put my fingers very wide across the back. I need a bigger screwdriver. This one is not big enough. And then I want to, all I need is a little bit of fat in there so it doesn't move. And what I want to try here is just taking the movement out and putting it back in and seeing where the crown sits. So I might not have to disturb everything again, right? So I just want to drop the movement out. And it's not in the setting position. It should be in the setting position, but it might be able to drop out like this. Let me see. Is that dropping out? Yeah, it dropped out. So there we go. So it's dropped out right now. And if I just turn the crown one turn like that and put it back in, what's it going to do? What's it going to do, boy? Like that. And then put the watch back in like this. And I want to look at that movement here. It still looks like there's a bit of play, but I'm going to try. I'm just going to screw it in, and then I think I might have my fingers on the second hand here. Be very careful. See, is that going to tick? Yeah, good. Make it clear. Just turn that over here. Yeah, keep my fingers away from that second hand. It's just too easy to grab stuff like that. Alright, so that's catching there. And tighten that up, and then grab this screw and tighten that up. And if that doesn't work, I'm taking the movement out, removing the crown, and then after removing the crown, I will remove the crown from the stem. I'm going to take this out at an angle here, or tighten this at an angle again so the screwdriver slips. I don't want to deal with screwing up the movement, and especially screwing up. It's slipping a lot right now because I need to concentrate. Screwing up the hairspring. Okay, so it's in now. And now if I turn this over like that, and can I wind it? No, see that? It jumped. Yeah, there. You hear that click, click, like that? So I want to tighten that just a bit. So I'm going to just be a good boy again. Undo these screws. It's a bit of a pain in the butt, but it's necessary. So, and I can lay this watch down just on this mat here because there's no requirement to. You don't want the hands to foul, but if I lay it down on the mat with the movement, let me just pull this stem out first. There we go. Put that in the out position. And like I said before, I got to be a master of my own destiny here. I got to turn this at an angle, and I'm way too close to that second hand right now. I know I am. Just turn it like that, and then take the screw out nice and easy, like this. And I don't want that movement to fall out. So I got it like this, and this should just uncase real easily, right? So just do this. There, I'm uncasing it, and you see that it's just ticking like crazy right now because I no longer have it inhibited. And you can just put this right down on the mat. You can put it anywhere, but I'll just put it aside for now because now I want to adjust this ever so slightly, right? So I want to grab the stem and then take the stem out and then pull that crown out. So what I'll do is I think I want to put it in the down position. And you see there's a little bit of play there. I'm going to try to get rid of that play. So I'm going to get myself a wrench. Alright, so here's the wrench, and what I want to do is take the crown off first, and this shouldn't be too difficult to do. So you just grab the stem with your wrench like that, and then you just turn the crown like this, and it should just completely unscrew like so. So there you go. So the crown just unscrewed. Shouldn't be too hard a job. And there's the crown floating in there, right? And I want to lower that just a tad. So I remember the wrench I used before, and I think it was, if I look at all these sleeve wrenches, it's none of those. Because I remember having to use, I think this one right here, because it was able to go over all that crap and then turn this. So I'm looking very carefully at it, and then put that in there like this and do like quarter turn. See if that works. That's a quarter turn on the threads, and now I just have to put the crown back in So I'll grab the stem again, and again hoping that that quarter turn is enough. It's not too much and it's not too tight. What I'll do is I'll put the crown in and see how tight the crown is against the sleeve here, because it shouldn't be too tight. And remember, it was in the out position, so I'm pushing it up right now. So I believe it was in the out position. We'll see. Let me just screw that back down again, like that. Tighten it just a bit. And I'm looking at how much movement is there here. It's still moving nicely here, like that. And if I pull this out like that, then we're good there. Push it in. It clicks. It's a little tight, I think. Hard to say. It is a little tight. It's scraping just a bit. You can see that just a bit, right? So what I want to do then is take it back just a tad, right? Because I did a 90-degree turn on that, and the 90 degrees might have been too much. So I'm going to just take this out again, like that. Sleeve wrench in again, like this, and I did 90 degrees, so I want to just take it back just a little tiny bit, right? So let me see if I can get that sleeve wrench in comfortably, and then take it back just a little bit like that. There we go. So that's just back 20 degrees maybe, because it was feeling good. I'm just seeing if it's going to remain good after I put the crown back on. Putting the crown back on with gloves on is probably not the best thing to do, because the team does seem to fart with the gloves too much. Alright. Grab that stem again on the bottom, pull that up, line it up with the crown like this, and just start turning until it grips. And it's not going to grip, it's just going to slide on nicely, right? So until I get to the bottom of it, like that, and then I just give it a good turn like this. And then, am I getting action here? Yeah, I'm getting a little tiny bit of scraping, but not a lot. So, but it's not pushing all the way in again. So now the question is, will that resolve my issue? So grab the movement again, like this, and very carefully, again, I want to keep my fingers away from the 12 o'clock position here. So I want to lay this down, and I don't like to foul the second hand as well. So I just lay that in like that, and this is already in the inward position, so I think I'm probably touching the second hand right now. Can I case it like this? I think I can. Yeah, I think I can. Just turn that around and make sure it's cased properly. There we go. That's in the case right now. And now I can grab the screw like this, and I think I'll put the back one in, that way it's got some support. The rear screw like that. And I want to get the bigger screwdriver of the two and just screw that down nice and easy. I'll try not to slip my screwdriver here. I won't tighten that completely because I want to get a decent grip on it when I tighten it. Put that screw in like that. Again, I'm angling the movement away so this doesn't slip and I don't accidentally screw things up. So there we go. So it's in now. I can hold the watch on its edges like this. Probably put the back on. Might be a smart move, or the face rather, might be a smart move before I start putting any pressure on those screws. So I just need to find the threads. Find the threads nice and easy. Just if you don't find the threads right away, just back it off a bit and play with it until you find the threads. This took a while for me to get used to. When I started watchmaking, I was like farting around with it and couldn't find the threads right away. So you want this movement to be in here nice and tight, not so tight that it's going to foul up anything, but I'm just going to see if it winds now. And there, it's winding now without slipping at all. So that was a nice adjustment. There we go. That's fixed. That's good. I got a great amplitude on this little watch, so it's running really well. And this is the one I fixed the spring on a while ago, so I'm pretty happy with what I've got there. And I'm just going to get out a little blowing device here, and if there's any dust, stay away from the hairspring. Stay away from the balance in the hairspring when you do this, because you could foul the hairspring blowing air on it. So that's that. Let me get the back of this as well. Just taking everything off of that, and let me screw that back on, and I'll just publish this video so you guys can see exactly what I did there. But that was an adjustment of the depth of the stem into the watch movement that was necessary, because that little wheel the clutch wheel was not engaging with the crown wheel. Let me go get the names of these things to make sure I'm absolutely right about crowns and clutches and everything else. So I'm going to open the book out in front of you. All right, here's the book. I'm taking my glove off right now because I don't need to protect the book from anything, from dust or anything. And let me just look at the parts of a watch. And I think I've got another book, like there's a military book that's... See, this one calls it... This is the one I showed you before, right? That calls this the winding wheel on the top. And this is a winding pinion. So I'm going to get another book to see if it says the same thing. All right, this is another book I have called Practical Watch Repair. And it's by DeCarl, which is pretty good. So Donald DeCarl. So he's made a lot of good watch books. So guess what? Different name. So sure enough, this is called the ratchet wheel screw. And that, therefore, this is called the ratchet wheel. So this is the ratchet wheel in both books. This book, this is called a transmission wheel now. So they call that the transmission wheel as opposed to the winding wheel. So that's the transmission wheel. And then if you look over here in the parts that I was looking at in the stem and stuff, I'm going to zoom in a bit on that so you can see it. So here they're calling this, which this here wheel is called the crown wheel, right? So that's the crown wheel. I think the wheel back here that I call the clutch wheel, as they call the clutch wheel in the other book, looks like it's being called the castle wheel as it comes up. See that name there? So the crown wheel's on the top, which I was right about. So as opposed to the winding wheel or whatever, that's crown wheel, and that's a castle wheel, right? That's merging with that with teeth that are not the teeth are angled, right? So they grab it like a clutch, right? So that's what that's called. Now let me get one more book. All right, we're going to war. This is the War Department Technical Manual. You can get these online, actually. I've got two of them. They're pretty decent when it comes to maintaining pocket watches. And they actually have watches in here, but mainly pocket watches. And I suspect this was World War I and maybe World War II as well. So it says wrist watches, pocket watches, stopwatches, and clocks. So mainly pocket watches and stuff. So if I look at what this is called, and I just zoom in manually here so I can have a look at that. So you look at this wheel here, A. So this wheel here, A, they're calling it the pinion wheel. Do you remember that before? That was called the pinion wheel. So we were calling it the crown wheel, or the clutch wheel, right? That's pretty much what I called it, and I think that they're calling that, maybe this was a transmission wheel, but that's the clutch wheel. So that's a good name for that, right? That's the clutch wheel, because you can see it going in as a clutch with the clutch wheel. And G, as they call it, the clutch lever. So that's the lever that pushes that wheel towards the crown for winding, right? So that's that wheel. And then this little tiny wheel here is C, the one right up here. That's when the clutch wheel is disengaged. Then its teeth get engaged with this setting wheel, and then the setting wheel hits the minute wheel, which hits the minute wheel pinion on here, hits in this case here, it's hitting the outer teeth of the hour wheel, right? So this pinion is riding in the outer teeth of that hour wheel right there. So And then it's also, the minute wheel is also riding on the pinion of the cannon pinion, I think is, yeah, that's the cannon pinion down here. So it's, so when you put the cannon pinion in, the first thing you do is you line it up with the minute wheel, and then you put over the top of the cannon pinion, put the hour wheel. And this whole mechanism here is good for setting minutes and hours, hours and minutes, right? So it's all gear ratios, baby. It's all gear ratios. So that's how this works. And of course, these setting mechanisms are all unique depending on what type of watch you're working on. In this case here, you would take this, I think it's called a click spring. Where am I? Setting spring cam, different name, and you would pull that back, which would release this, which would release this, which would pull that back, which would take the power off the mainspring. So that's that. Do I have another page for this? Let me see. All right, so this is the Chicago School of Watchmaking book I have. It's a beautiful, beautiful book. It assumes you know things before you actually start diving into this, but this also has, you know, if you look at the, it has all the winding mechanisms here, but it's hard to see the number because this is a reprint of this book. But if you look down right here, it's got the stem, it's got the clutch wheel, so that is the clutch wheel in this book. It's got the winding pinion, as opposed to what we were calling the crown wheel, or the crown pinion. Or in the other case, there was the castle. This clutch wheel was called the castle wheel, and this was called the crown wheel. So this, instead of castle and crown, is clutch wheel and winding pinion, and then the ratchet wheel is the wheel that's over the mainspring, and the crown wheel would be the wheel that's, let me think here. Yeah, the crown wheel would be the one that's on top, I believe. So anyway, so those are the names. All right, we got one last look at this, right? So I need a screwdriver this time because I think I buried my tweezers underneath the book. Again, the Chicago School of Watchmaking. So we have V and W. These are the two wheels here we're looking at. So if I flip to the next page and look up V and W, VW. So there's V and W. So V on the bottom is the winding clutch. So the clutch wheel, you can call it, or winding clutch. And W on the bottom here is the winding pinion. So those are good names then. And then, so the top ones are looking at the ratchet wheel, right? The ratchet wheel, and the other wheel would have been the crown wheel. So the one that's touching the winding pinion would be the crown wheel. And then the crown wheel is over the ratchet wheel, which is over the mainspring barrel, right? So if I look at that, there you go. So that's the S would be the ratchet wheel, and then U would be the crown wheel, right? Yeah, the ratchet wheel and the crown wheel. Yeah, U's the crown wheel. So U is the crown wheel. So, and that's the ratchet wheel. And the screw here often turns counterclockwise to tighten as opposed to clockwise. So you just have to look at the watch movement and then which side of the ratchet wheel is this crown wheel. That determines whether this is clockwise or counterclockwise. And as I was showing you before, there's the stems here. This is what the whole mechanism looks like with the winding pinions and the crown wheels and everything else. So there you go. So this is a Chicago School of Watchmaking. Look at the thickness of this book. I'm going to back out a bit so you can see just how thick this thing is. Look at that. This is like a novel, baby. This is a massive book. Chicago School of Watchmaking. I bought this. It's a reprint, so somebody reprinted this baby, and it's massive. So that's it for today's video. Got the watch working again. So thanks for tuning into my channel. Let me have a look here. Let me just zoom in here because that's a pretty good picture. And I'll put some tweezers on the bottom like that, or on the side. And let me capture that pocket watch with some tweezers on either side. There we go. And then arrange my camera so it's all in focus and view. Chicago School of Watchmaking. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. There we go. See you later. Thanks. Bye.